I going to say that?
Yes, you are. I just had to get a pen. Call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. for the workshop. Pastor Alvinell, if he could lead us in our prayer.
All set.
We're all set.
All righty, greetings everyone. I'm Pastor Al, Flagler Estates Pentecostal right here in Flagler Estates. Welcome. As we get started, we just get into the Word of God. Throughout the Word of God, it talks about wisdom and knowledge. So today's scripture, I'd like to start with Proverbs 18:15, which says, "The heart of the intelligent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge." So let's come together in prayer. Heavenly Father, we praise you and give you glory. We thank you, Lord, that we can come together unified as a community. Lord, we just seek this wisdom and knowledge today. And Lord, we just pray over all who are speaking. Lord, that you have clarity of mind and thought and speech. And Lord, also pray over us who hear it, that we receive what we've heard today and just keep it in our hearts. Lord, we praise you, and all that hear it, I just pray peace over everyone tonight. And I just pray also joy. And I just pray this in the name of Christ Jesus. All in agreement, say amen.
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 Thank you.
And if we can just stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you can be seated. Thank you so much for being out here. I would like to just say thank you for Mr. Kramer, Ms. Raven, and all of the county officials. We appreciate you guys being out here and doing this class for us. I know a lot of us will have questions, and you guys will be able to answer them the best of your ability. And I'm Talisha. I am chair of the steering committee, and then I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Shirley Lassiter, secretary.
I'm Mel Adams, vice secretary. So we can go ahead. Thank you. We can go ahead and get started, and then we have Deb. She's been missing in action, but she's back today. We're going to force her to keep staying. But we appreciate you guys being here, and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
And then we need a surgeon in arms to keep time.
We'll do it.
We don't have to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I don't want to take anything for granted. All right.
If you need to say anything, go ahead. I'm going to listen.
No, later.
Okay.
Later.
Shirley, go ahead and whoever you need to go first.
Or wait.
All right, good evening. I am Wade Schroeder, Assistant Director for the Office of Management Budget for St. Johns County. This evening, I'm going to go over tax increment financing, or TIF, as you may have heard before, and that is kind of the funding related to CRA, so for the Flagler Estates CRA. All right, so just kind of go over what I'm going to talk about. So what is the Flagler Estates Community Redevelopment Agency, or CRA, and what is a CRA in general? What is tax increment financing, or TIF? And then kind of go through the CRA and the steering committee, as well as finally, what does that mean to the Flagler Estates community? All right, what is the Flagler Estates CRA? So the CRA was created in 2003 by the St. Johns County Board of County Commissioners, and it was created as a funding mechanism to assist the development of roads and drainage within the Flagler Estates community. The CRA plan to each. Yes,
I have
question.
a question.
Sure.
You're talking about community redevelopment and developing infrastructure. I've been here since 2000. I've been paying taxes. I pay exactly the same taxes as downtown Sarah. Why do we need additional funding for this area?
So it's not necessarily additional funding. It's just more earmarked funding, and I'll kind of get into that. You are not paying the same tax rate as the city.
Yes, I am. I actually had a condo on the beach, so I know exactly what the taxes are, and they're identical.
All right. Tax rate or taxes?
tax rate.
Okay. Each CRA has to have a CRA plan, and the CRA plan for Flagler Estates was to fund roads and drainage within the community. Residents do not pay an additional tax as part of this, as part of the CRA, that tax increment financing. How that mechanism works is when the CRA is established, the prior taxes related to that area, the base year, those taxes that went to the county's general fund prior continue to go to the general fund. The incremental taxes, the increase in taxes in each year after that base rate, those incremental taxes, 95% goes earmarked to the CRA for CRA purposes, and then the county receives 5%. So the county gets the base year. Any growth above that base year, 95% goes to the CRA into a separate fund only for the CRA. 5% goes to the county. It is not an additional tax. It is just an earmarking of taxes that would have otherwise gone to the general fund for general fund purposes.
Excuse me, the original, 32 million.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers. I can pull up the spreadsheet later, but I don't have the original base value.
Okay.
I have it, but I don't have it
Right.
handy.
If we
It's
could
about
keep
that.
all questions until after the presentation, I think that would make this thing a little bit smoother. Thank you.
All right, so it was a 30-year CRA. It was adopted and originated in 2003. It ends in 2032. There is an opportunity, and kind of what we're here tonight, to get feedback from the community, or what the CRA steering committee would like to get feedback from the community, because there is an opportunity to allocate remaining CRA funding toward eligible infrastructure within Flagler Estates. All right, so what is a CRA? What is tax increment financing? Again, a CRA is a public entity established under Florida statute to assist in community redevelopment. In St. Johns County, the Board of County Commissioners is the official board of the CRA. There is a steering committee, but the Board of County Commissioners is the ultimate decision maker. Having partnered with the Flagler Estates community, the agency formally adopts a plan and a strategy to address economic development. Funding to address this economic development is primarily funded by the county upfront or through, in this case, there were some loans that the county took out under its debt obligations, and the tax increment financing, the funding to the CRA initially paid back the debt on those loans. Again, tax increment financing is a method to pay for the redevelopment through that increased property tax, that incremental increase from such development. It's not a tax increase. It's just a direct allocation of your taxes toward the payback of development infrastructure. Again, just kind of go over the components of the CRA. Again, the Board of County Commissioners is the CRA, the board of the Community Redevelopment Agency. And as well, there, as you're familiar with, the CRA Steering Committee, they provide recommendations to the Community Redevelopment Agency or the board, primarily through the annual budget process for eligible infrastructure needs within Flagler Estates. The steering committee, through its community workshops and events, they solicit feedback from the community for eligible infrastructure needs. So what does this mean to the Flagler Estates community? So just a little bit of history on the CRA, the TIF funding. When it was originally established, it was during a period in the county of high growth. So the tax increment financing was more than enough at that time in the initial years to generate funds to repay the loans that were taken out by the county. As you're probably all well aware, in the economic downturn starting in 2007, property values also went down, which meant the incremental financing or funding to the CRAs also went down. At that time, the CRA did not generate enough funding to pay its annual debt service for the loans that were taken out. The county's general fund made up the difference. However, since that time, since we came out of the recession, taxes have, taxable values have grown again. The CRA has more than enough funds to both pay the annual debt service as well as repay the general fund for the debt service it paid during those down years. So in addition to that, current estimates for the remaining years of the Flagler Estates CRA, it's anticipated there will be approximately $4 million available towards eligible infrastructure projects. Those are estimates. They can change. It's estimated kind of current trending growth, current millage rates. If there is another economic downturn, those numbers could be plus or minus. But right now we're estimating about $4 million available. And ideally, I think what the steering committee would like to see as feedback from the community for projects that $4 million could go to. Ideally, one-time infrastructure projects without a recurring annual cost to them, because again, the CRAs do end in 2032. At that point, there is no additional funding going into the CRA. So if you have recurring expenses beyond 2032, you no longer have a revenue source for it. So ideally, it would go towards one-time infrastructure projects. And again, county staff looks to the steering committee, and I think the steering committee looks to the community to get feedback on which projects, infrastructure projects, that potential funding could go towards. So with that, are there any questions? Yes.
You express the fact that there is a loan environment debt. What is that debt? What is the amount?
So there was a loan environment. In the early years, the county took out two separate loans.
The county took it out, not Flagler.
Correct.
Okay.
Through the county's borrowing process for the CRA's benefit, and that's the debt that the CRA was paying back.
Okay.
Those loans have since been paid off, so under current situation, there is no loan environment within the CRA, within the Flagler Estates CRA.
Okay.
Can you just clarify for us what the loan was for?
I believe the loans were for the paving of certain roads within Flagler Estates. I don't have a list of the roads. They were early 2000s.
As far as I know, the only thing they did was road signs and a couple roads. I've been here 20 years and my road is still good.
Okay.
So I'm a little unsure of what it is that I've been putting my money into, because original was
And
$100,
you have not
now it's
been
$2,000.
paying additional taxes. There's no increase in your taxes as a result of this.
As a result of this, yeah. There is an increase in tax, you all know that.
No increase in taxes that you would otherwise pay to the county. The
Right.
taxes are just directly allocated to the CRA instead of to the county's general fund.
I got a question. Sorry, go ahead, Bill. I thought there was a couple more years of payoff for the whole road thing, as far as I knew. I thought there were still a few years left that the CRA had to pay off the original debt.
Yeah, the original debt, those loans are paid off. However, the kind of the remaining balance, remember at the time where the general fund was paying a portion of that debt, that balance is still kind of outstanding. So that balance is being recovered over the remaining life of the CRA, just kind of an annual appropriation of balanced amount.
So that's the 5%?
No, that comes from the CRA funds. So the 95% generates more than enough to repay the general fund back for the loan, the debt it paid during the downtime.
I got you. So we then get the difference, basically, right?
The CRA would get, yes.
That's a little confusing. You say we don't owe anything, but there is an ongoing payback to the county, but as far as I know, I'm paying taxes to the county. So why am I paying back to a county that I've already paid for.
That he was explaining that in the economic downturn, there was enough revenue generated, and the county had to step in to cover those funds. Am I getting this correctly? And that's what we're paying back, the funds that were picked during the economic downturn.
Okay, that economic downturn occurred to all of us.
Correct? No, I'm with you.
And I didn't say to the county, gee, spend some more money. I said, hey, Bill, you have to stop spending money because there isn't any. Now, why can't the county do the same thing? Government seems to want to spend regardless of what the situation is, and that's where I'm coming from. Let's all be responsible for that expenditure. And the county seems to think that they're not answerable to the people that they collect taxes from. I'm one of those people. So I'd like to see fiscal responsibility. And I don't see that. My original taxes out here were like $180. Now it's over $1,800. So I
That's
like to
everybody,
think that
though.
it's coming somewhere, and it's not.
That's all of us, though.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's,
everybody knows it. I mean, we've
Yeah.
all
no, I mean,
experienced the same thing.
everyone's taxes have went up. You're not paying the same taxes as you were in 2007 or 2006. Everyone's taxes have gone up. But you have homestead, right?
I do.
All right, so there's a limit of how much your taxes can go up because you have homestead.
That's like saying, gee, I can only take so much out of your pocket. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. They can only take so much out of my pocket. But my question is, why are you taking it out of my pocket? And what am I getting for it? I'm not getting
Fair enough
roads.
question.
I'm not getting water. I'm not getting sewage. I pay for my electricity. So what is it the county is doing for me that they ask me to pay money? Now, the only thing I've seen done is that stretch of sidewalk from Buzzmart to Amos. And that happens, I don't know if all of you know this, but that happens to be on a piece of property that is owned by the county.
But the road and water is a different department. That's Bill's department over here.
I just want to add that, you brought up the point about why would you spend the money if you didn't have the money,
I don't.
or have the debt service. The problem is that those roads were put down before before
The
that
recession.
growth fund, before the growth funding decreased.
Right.
So that already happened. So they spent that money that they were expecting.
spent money they didn't have.
They spent money that
They
they
didn't
didn't have. And basically the county helped us by
No, they didn't.
getting but over time, at least we have whatever roads got put down then. And that's what they have factored over the remaining time, but he's saying that also over the remaining time, the reason we're here tonight is because we have the potential of $4 million of infrastructure.
Again, are we doing this with money we have or money that's projected?
He said it is projected.
Projected. So again, my point is, I don't buy anything that I don't have money for. Why are we buying something we don't have money for?
Well, the other thing I want to just make clear is that the TIF is not a tax. Basically, it's kind of like they set a base rate. We're going to have the property assessor talk about how that all works. But then as the value goes up after that base rate, they kind of just take that off and the 95% stays allocated to us and the 5% goes to the county.
And when we have the money just to do it, then we can do it. But
And I think we have, do
spending
you know what the
ahead of time is a bad
balance is
idea.
right now of what we have?
No, I have to look into the details.
Because it's been a while since I personally have seen the balance, but the last time I seen it, it was over $1 million, so.
Sure. Can you
Yeah.
explain that after 2032, there isn't any more CRA?
Right, so here's
and
the
then there's
incentive.
no-
Good point. So Nancy brings up a good point, is that this is leverage we have now that we may not have after 2032. This is, because these are funds that should only be spent here, what's in this. And so, once 2032 passes and the TIF is over, there's no guarantee that those funds would be available for us any longer to put in infrastructure that we need here.
Can somebody also explain how the CRA became a part of Flagler Estates from the beginning? What was the purpose of allowing Flagler Estates to be a CRA. And the specialty of this area that makes it available for them.
Sure, so the CRAs are developed and approved in order to provide economic development in areas that may not have the infrastructure, in place necessary for development. So the CRA, again, provides a funding source that could then go towards infrastructure that would then help spur additional development.
And I just asked another question regarding that. So past 2032, would it be safe to say that Flagler Estates as an area may end up hiking up some kind of taxes or an HOA or something, right? If we want to build any more roads. Is that fair to say it's a possibility?
That could be a possibility through the road and water control district, or some other funding.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the CRA funding, the TIP funding
All that
after 2032 will no longer.
Yeah, I'm Bill Fisher, I'm president of Flagler State Road and Water, and I was at the meetings when the CRA was formed. A guy named Jerry Dirtschultz and Victor were the two behind it. And their main project at that time was to pave roads. And it hasn't happened.
So initially it did. There were 2 loans initially taken out 2 paved roads. Nobody necessarily saw the economic recession that occurred that kind of changed the way, really, not just for Flagler Estates CRA, but for all the CRAs within the county. The growth was exponential prior to the recession, and then it kind of went backwards.
Well, now you said it was approximately $4 million available.
Projected to be available through the end of the CRA, yes.
Okay. How much asphalt would that buy?
I'm not a public works guy. I don't know the cost per mile of asphalt. I'm not sure.
But that's certainly a possibility with that money, right? That's infrastructure. That could be up to 4 million. I agree with you. No one wants to spend money before it's actually there. But we're projecting. We're the budget office. We look at what the millage rates are, your tax rates. We look at what potentially we're looking conservatively at what valuations, how they may increase, and we're saying up through 2032. This mechanism, this CRA, this mechanism that's been out there, could generate for this area without you having to pay additional taxes, could generate $4 million that could be reinvested into infrastructure here, be it roads. I mean, that's certainly an opportunity.
That's what we wanted, right? It's not to say that everybody wants that.
That's where the community comes into this, right? So the Board of County Commissioners is the CRA. They are the agency. They established it, and there was a plan to put roads in, to pave roads. I'm sorry. They ultimately make the decision, but they've always had a steering committee to advise, to provide recommendations during the annual budget process. If we look at it from year to year, look, I mean, it's like it's piecemealing. If we have, let's say, 10 years left and we're at 400,000, we can either do $400,000 a year and or towards roads and or we're kind of projecting, or we look at what the potential aggregate is to let the community kind of start planning out what could we do with that, because after 2032 that balance goes back to the county. It's county dollars. It really is. You're getting a carve out. You're paying for sheriff, you're paying for fire services, you're paying for, parks and recreation, libraries. And what actually Flagler Estates is right now is they're subsidized because they are a CRA. They're subsidized by other communities for that because your dollars are carved out right now under that CRA to put investment into this area. Economic downturn, some rollback rates, some millage adjustments did not generate sufficient dollars. And who knows where the economy is going right in the next couple of years, or what the state may bring up in terms of mandates, or even the Board of County Commissioners in terms of rollback rates or any, but what we're projecting is, hey, there's a dollar amount, again, kind of just to reiterate, a dollar amount that can be reinvested in Flagler Estates for infrastructure. And as the community, this community, I live in Palencia, I don't make any decisions on Flagler Estates, but this community makes decisions for what it can do with that funding and kind of plan for it. So we don't wait till 2033 and go, we should have put that into, how many roads could we have paved with it?
Is Valencia an area where roads have been put in?
Well, yes, so actually, yeah, to start that, yes, so so the developer who puts Palencia in, put the roadways in, and I pay certain fees back to basically reimburse for some level of that. And there are HOA fees and some of that. No, those are primarily development related.
big fee.
And we pay fees for the roadway infrastructure, yes.
What
Yeah.
about impact fees?
What about impact fees? So impact fees are a little different, and we can certainly talk about impact fees. And Mr. Williams, I know, there's still a conversation that we need to have about impact fees. I just don't want to confuse or take the two pots of money and put them all together. Impact fees are another creature. You also have a road district that also is another factor in here. But there is potentially be generated through the CRA, which is really why we're here tonight to say, if that money comes to fruition,
And we all appreciate that.
what would this community like to see? Where would they like to see that money,
But
placed?
having been here since 2000.
Yeah.
I can tell you, ain't nothing happened. And we're all a little bit touchy about that. I think that's reasonable and humane.
Well, I'd say the original infrastructure was put in some 20 years ago. That was about the extent of that infrastructure. After that, my understanding is they are primarily private roads that are managed by the road and water, is it water? Yes, district. Excuse me on that. So that's how, you're paying for district. That's your consideration in talking to the district of what level of funding that district needs to provide the infrastructure for the roads. This CRA could, at least in the short term for the next couple of years, supplement that. This year,
It's existed since 2004, right? 2004.
yeah, but in 2025, the CRA provided some funding for millings, $151,000.
In recent prior years, the CRA purchased additional land for which the park, this facility right here is on. So there has been some investments from the CRA dollars
CRA pay for this?
for some of the expansion of the land.
The land only. The
Right.
county, your general taxes and the county collective paid for is paying for the park. And the impact, some of fire impact fees are paying for the fire station. A lot of different pots
So all this stuff is not coming from the tax.
from this TIF, from the CRA.
No,
So-
but some of the purchase of the land, a couple parcels were purchased
And last
from the
year-
CRA.
Last year, two
But
parcels.
beyond that, yeah,
Purchased.
no other county funds.
So. First question is, can we extend the life of the CRA now? Before.
So there's state legislation on that. Originally, they were established for a 30-year period. I'm not sure if they can be extended. I also know that there is potential legislation out there right now to prevent any future CRAs from being
That's what I'm
established.
asking. Can we extend it now?
Yeah, I'd have to ask a legal opinion on that. I'm not sure.
Next, the TIF comes from the taxes, right? So any of the TIF come from the district money that would be extra.
That's
what
from
it-
the
that's-
property taxes from the community itself, from within the CRA boundaries.
So what is that next money actually we pay, what's the money doing? Yeah.
So
You don't
again,
pay
it's not
extra.
extra money, it's a portion of the taxes that you would.
We get that tax and then we have.
I think
think
you
it's
get
like-
The
Well,
the
that's
road
not
and
what
water
it does.
control district, is
Yeah.
that what you're asking? That is not a part of the county whatsoever, that's a separate taxing
No.
authority.
No money from there goes to TIF at all.
Correct.
Why?
Hmm?
Why does that?
We got somebody else going to tell us.
When I first moved in here, I asked that in the county office. They told me the money is to put railroads, but you're telling me that money is not even considered to use for the roads. So what is that money?
I would say it's considered to use for roads and drainage, but those taxes do not come to the county, they go to the road and water control district for their operations, for their.
They tax you independently and they
Yeah,
hold on
that's
to the money.
separate from the county.
Oh, I know that, but yeah, but no other money goes to the TIF to pay for the roads. So that money goes to pay the
I
roads.
think that your question is a good transition for, our next speaker. To explain, oh, you have it for specifically about the TIF.
We have the limited budget and shortage of the budget for road and drainage. Why, last year, why the Helena Street is already paved and why are they repaving again for the Helena instead of paving the dirt road or putting the gravel?
That's a question for the road and water district.
Yes.
They
And
were
also,
charged with building all the
yes.
roads.
The next people who are talking, you can ask that question.
Well, or maybe distinguish between the non-antiquarian, which is here, that's another workshop I think we may need to have. But for tonight, we have our next speaker, and that is the property assessor, Eddie.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eddie Kramer. I'm the elected St. Johns County property appraiser. I'm going to we'll pass it around, my cards. That's probably the most important thing I'll tell you tonight, because inevitably you'll have another question before the day goes on. My direct phone number is on that card. So if you have a question, call me. I answer my phone, and I will probably not know the answer to your question, but I will get you the answer to your question. So as a property appraiser, I am an elected constitutional officer, which means my office was established by the Florida Constitution, and I have one responsibility and one responsibility only. That responsibility is to create the tax roll for the taxing authorities. And I am not a taxing entity. I create the tax rolls. I'm not a collection entity. You'll hear from the tax collector later, Jennifer Raven, who takes the money, and I'll just point out,
You point out how much money we.
they talk about the tax collector in the Bible, they don't talk about the property appraiser. So what the property appraiser does is create the tax roll for the taxing authorities. In our county, there are a number of taxing authorities, and I do think that was a good question, and I want to go into that just a little bit. There's St. Johns County that is a taxing authority. There is also St. Johns River Water Management District, Florida Inland Navigation District, Mosquito Control, Airport Authority, even though they haven't imposed millage, that are all taxing authorities. Okay. There's also the St. Johns County School Board that is a taxing authority. So when we talk about our tax dollars and they're not getting spent appropriately, there are a number of those. In fact, of the millage you pay here, and the millage most of us pay unless we're in the city of St. Augustine, half of that millage goes to the schools, right? So you can kind of take that out of what we pay. It's a separate entity. But of that, more than half of that is something called required local effort. Okay? So when you look at your trim notice or your tax bill and you break down the school taxes, you'll see local and you'll see state. State is more than local. Our county has no control over that. None whatsoever. So a third of your tax bill, a third of your millage, nobody in this room or nobody in the county has any. So property taxes in Florida are ad valorem. That means according to value. So counties, school boards,
Mosquito controls set their millage rates. The millage rates are applied to the value of the rolls, and that's the dollars that they collect back every year to fund the operations of that. So as a property appraiser, our job, we're constitutionally mandated to create that tax roll. Okay? We have no oversight of the county. We have no oversight from any taxing authority. We are independent. I'm elected. I am the representative of the property owner. My budgets are not approved by the taxing authorities. They're approved by the Florida Department of Revenue. Okay? The tax roll is not approved by the taxing authorities. It's approved by the Florida Department of Revenue. And it's approved consistently under the same standards, statutes, and guidelines as 66 other counties in the state. Okay? So the way we create that tax roll is pretty simple. We appraise all real and tangible personal property in the county as of January 1st every tax year. Florida is a January 1st assessment state, and we are required to reappraise as of January 1st of every year. Florida is also known as a market value state. It means we appraise at market value. Market value is based on sales. In our county, we qualify between 12 and 16,000 sales a year. So they're telling us what market value is. Okay. The second thing we do is we administer all caps and exemptions that are granted in the county under state law and the Constitution. Okay. Homestead, and I'm going to stop there because I missed another important part. I've got two of my team members with me. Okay. And they're also your neighbors. Peggy Hand is our supervisor of exemptions, and she runs our exemptions department in the area of the caps. Kevin Beverly is the senior appraiser, and he is actually the appraiser in this area. So if your value is too high, don't call me. So in addition to appraising property, we administer all the caps and all the exemptions. The gateway exemption in the state of Florida is homestead. To get the other exemptions that you may qualify for, except for two minor exemptions, you have to have homestead exemption. And then you go beyond that. So once you have homestead exemption, you have a 3% cap on the amount your assessed value can go up each year. Not a 3% cap on your taxes, a 3% cap on your assessed value. So what our office does is we calculate your just market value. Okay? That number we come up with. Your assessed value is then calculated based on the caps. We don't create that number, it's calculated. If you're non-homestead, the cap is 10% on the assessed value. The third number is the taxable value, and that is simply your assessed value less any exemptions that you have. That's the number your millage rates are applied to, and that's where it gets to the dollar on your tax bill. So that's fundamentally what our office does, and that's what we do throughout the year. January 1st the following year, we start all over. Ms. Peggy and Kevin will tell you, I could talk forever, but I've seen some hands raised, so I'll answer questions.
Okay. My question is fair market value. How do you determine fair market value?
Just market value or fair market value in terms that are changeable is what a willing buyer will pay a willing seller in an unforced transaction. So the way we determine,
Hold
That's the way
on
I
one
always
second.
understood it, too.
Yeah, but hang on. If you're telling me, and I brought this up prior, if you're telling me, for example, your house is appraised, we think a buyer will pay you $400,000. That's then what my house gets appraised at.
no, not for my purposes. I'm a tax appraiser. Okay? So I appraise based on things that have already happened. I'm a historian. So when we appraise, we're appraising based on sales, and those sales are based on that criteria. So every year, every sale that occurs in our county is recorded at the clerk of the court's office. A deed is filed. That deed then comes to our office because we're also the cadastre of the county, and I won't go into that. It's just the official record keeper of ownership. We qualify that sale. Okay? We qualify it. We go out and research to make sure it's an arm's length transaction. That it wasn't a family member selling, that it wasn't an auction, that it wasn't a foreclosure, and then we record that sale as a valid sale.
Okay, but
The
then
Florida Department, let me finish this statement. Florida Department of Revenue we submit those sales to the Florida Department of Revenue, and they audit us to make sure we're qualifying properly. According to state statute, I'm appraising as of January 1st. So I'm looking at sales that occurred the previous year. So I'm a historian. I can go back to 3 years to look at sales. I'm prohibited from using a sale that occurred this year for this year's tax roll. It's next year's tax roll that I use that for. So back to your question.
So I get that, but then if you look around the area, there've been a lot of new development. You know, a lot of new houses built. A lot of us live in not those type of houses.
Right.
Does our property get, or property tax, or does it get valued based on those stick houses or based on what we actually live in?
Based on what you're actually living in. Okay. So when we look at the sales, Kevin is the appraiser. We are dividing the market up into homogeneous units, right? Because I don't want to be, even in a neighborhood like Jesse's, we're dividing his neighborhood up too, because honestly, houses sell in such disparate amounts in every area. So we're breaking that down to qualify. But that's a good question. I want to give you a quick number that Kevin gave me this morning. Prior to COVID, if you lived in at a mobile home in Flagler Estates, the average sales price for a mobile home and a lot was $135,000 average. Post-COVID, the average sales price is $240,000. Those are real sales. If you lived in a stick-built house pre-COVID, you were $164,000 average. Today, you're $300,000 average. Those are based on real sales. Now, as a property appraiser, we are always looking back, so we're historians, okay? We're also appraising in mass, so we're never gonna be at 100% of what it might sell for, okay? Because I'm not appraising one property at the time.
That was going to be my
In
other
the
question.
county, we are appraising 180,000 properties every year. In fact, in Flagler Estates this year, we're appraising 4,888 properties. So we're appraising in mass. Mass appraisal is appraising to statistics. Okay, you have to, otherwise you couldn't keep up. And I'll give back to your, well, we couldn't hire enough people to even appraise 4,800.
I'm available.
Yeah, well, there's more to efficiency. So we're appraising to levels of appraisal, meaning is what is our value as a percentage of real sales. We're appraising to coefficients of variation, coefficients of dispersion, to make sure we're not discriminating in values, that we're not raising lower value houses faster than we're raising higher value houses. All of those are coming to ratios. So when Kevin looks at a neighborhood, what he's trying to get to, for my benefit in the state of Florida, is basically a bell curve. So if you've ever had any sort of statistics, you know you're doing to a
I'm
bell
on the
curve,
second derivative.
not looking for, making sure your outliers are explained, right? And also a level of appraisal. So we're generally going to be 90% to 100% of true market value, historical sales. So this year, if the market was growing 20% like it has in some years, we're going to be lagging behind. But next year, if it goes down 20%,
You'll be lagging.
we're going to be lagging behind. That is taxation.
But
That's
basically, will
property
taxes
taxation.
ever go down instead of up?
Taxes, well, there's two ways to put that.
Yeah.
Remember, property taxes in Florida are ad valorem. So there's two ways taxes can go down. One way is a taxing authority can lower their millage rates.
Never gonna happen.
Okay? It has in the past, may happen, I don't, never say never, but I don't know. The other way is your values can go down. So if your values go down.
Good, hopefully they'll all go down.
One thing that I will point out to you though, is if you have homestead exemption or non-homestead exemption, that cap amount, okay? That save our homes deferred, if your just market value goes down, it comes out of that amount first. It's called a recapture. Okay. So in Florida, the cap on your assessed value is the lower of 3% or the increase in the CPI. So my first probably 4 years in office, maybe 5, the CPI increase was less than 2%. So your cap was actually like 1.6%, 1.9%, okay? A couple of years it went above 3, so your cap was at 3. Last year it was 2.9, so your cap was actually 2.9, so it's the lower of the two. So what our office does January 1st of every year, in January, the Department of Revenue publishes the CPI. If the CPI this coming year is 2.5%, we're going to raise your assessed value to 2.5%. That's the clawback. If the CPI is 4%, we're going to raise you 3%. That's the cap, regardless of what happens to your just market value. Okay, that's state statute. That's how property taxation is defined. What that does is, in a time like 2008, and I was a banker in 2008. So while the county was trying to figure out how to spend money, I was trying to figure out how to collect bad loans. What that does is protect the taxing authorities against rapidly falling values. So if values go down 30%, your taxing authorities don't lose 30% of their revenue in 1 year because they might not be able to react to that. It gives them cushion and insulation for that. Because honest to God, when values go down 30%, we don't want to dial 911 and not have anybody show up, right? My chest is hurting and we dial 911. I don't care what values have done. I want to see fire rescue in my house.
Sure, but we could cut other things to still make that happen, just saying.
The only thing that you didn't address, and I think you did a really good job, thank you.
They briefed me well for that.
Well, it's good to have people that are helping you keep along. Almost, probably 60 or 70% of the houses out here are trailers, double wides, triple wides, whatever. And when we put them in, they told us, and we have to have a little sticker that says,
Real property.
we're actually mobile homes, we're not whatevers. And we were told when we bought them, they're going to go down in value every year. I'm still waiting for it to go down in
I
value.
can address that for you. Okay, here's the deal. You will go down in value. However, if you have a mobile home and you'd call me and say, Kevin, you're crazy because you said my mobile home's $250,000. No, it said $250,000 you say my mobile home's worth. It's 1996. If you took it off the property and you sold it, is it worth $250,000? No. I'm going to tell you it's not. However, when I go through and I take a look at the land, I say, okay, land sales are this and that. I've got to make land. I'm going to adjust the value of the land first because this the only thing that has a non-depreciating asset is that land. Okay? So I get that in there. Now I have a land value. Well, Joe Smo down here, he bought this mobile home in 1996. He paid $350,000 for it, and several others did too. Okay, the only thing for me left to adjust is that building. Okay, I've got to come to market. I can't do it in land because I know what the land is worth, and I've got 3,000 other properties that don't have buildings on them. So if I say, hey, your land's worth $85,000 because no, that's not going to fly, right? However, I do have the data to say, hey, look, this 1996 sold for $225,000. Okay, if your land's at $30,000, I'm sorry, your build's worth X. I mean, it's not rocket science at that point. So I do understand it does depreciate. However, we have an actual year built and an effective year built. So the actual year built to year built might be 1996, which would put it unlivable. The Department of Revenue says, hey, if you're going to live in this mobile home, it should be 55% good. It's a livable structure. Okay, you can't live in a 1996 mobile home and leave it there. It's not going to be in the standards of a livable structure. Okay, we've got to get it up to average or whatever. Maybe might be 70%. If the sales tell me more so, it'll be more so. Did you follow me? Did I answer that question as far as why you're building? It is going to depreciate, but at the end of the day, I got to know what the total land package sold for.
You're coming up with a number and then filling it in.
I've got to come at me. I don't look
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't look at Old City Homes. They can come out here and pay $55,000 for a lot all day long, and they do. Okay, is your lot value $50,000? No. Your lot value is about $27,000, maybe going to $28,000 this year. Why? Because I'm not going to let them influence the market. I'm going to say, okay, they're paying that because they know what the X dollar is going to be when they get finished with this, so they don't really care what they pay for that product. So I'm not weighing super heavy on that. Okay. The other thing is, we have properties, people's been out here since 1972. So they paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in tax, and they say, you know what? Just take this daggone thing. I'm tired of paying on it. Give me $1,200 for it. Those sales are there. Is that market? No. There's sales for $12,000. Is that market? No. What is market? So we've got a range from $12,000 to $85,000. Where's market? We got to extrapolate the highs and the lows. Okay, this is what it is.
in every building, regardless of whether it's a building or home, and then we're applying condition factors to it, because if it's maintained, the maintenance of that home is maybe offsetting the depreciation.
Yeah, and I'm the one that's paying that improvement.
I live in 1996 home too, so
I'm in 2005.
I've got mine at crazy value. I could go buy a new one for it. I mean, that's just what it is. Because somebody's paying $300,000
Most
for
of our
this.
appraisers instructed their home better be the highest value.
Just one
All of
question.
our appraisers are instructed.
Mr. Kramer, you went over at Keller Williams about the grid, like, we got 4 sections of how we are not taxed the same as St. Augustine, downtown St. Augustine.
Not the city.
Correct. Can you explain that grid before?
And I think what you were pointing out, if you were in unincorporated St. Augustine Beach, you were paying the same millage rates as your.
Okay.
Correct.
But if you were, say, for instance, in
I was actually
the
impressed.
city of St. Augustine, you're paying almost an extra 6 mils in taxes. City of St. Augustine Beach is about 2.5 mils more in taxes to fund their operations. But what we do, we have 178,000 some odd parcels in our county. We divide our county into 4 areas: northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, and all of those markets are kind of different. We assign appraisers into those markets. Inside of those markets, we break that down into neighborhoods. Inside of those neighborhoods, we break it down into homogeneous units, right? So we're trying to get properties that are similar, so we can, when we record those sales, we're comparing apples to apples. And it's not perfect. As they say, an appraisal is an opinion of value. I would tell you our opinion is more accurate because we're statistically driven, as opposed to maybe bias for financing or that sort of thing. But that's, generally everybody pays the same millage, except City of St. Augustine and St. Augustine Beach. The other thing that's very common in St. Johns County are CDDs, right? Community Development Districts. I think that's what it stands for. So Palencia, Durbin, Rivertown, Nocatee. So when you ask who pays for the roads in there, the people who live there pay for the roads. Because what happens, the county's not going to go in and build all the roads in Nocatee. So the developer goes out and gets approved for a CDD. That goes through Tallahassee, and what that allows the developer what that allows then is for Jennifer to collect those CDD fees. So that gives it force of lien, because she can take the property over the CDD fee. That allows the developer then to sell bonds, and the bonds are funded by CDD fees. So every lot owner every year pays a fee to the CDD that basically is repaying the loan for all of those roads and is going to the bondholder. They're a separate taxing authority. They're not ad valorem, much like the water, drainage, and road is here, because here you have what's it called? Water special taxing is $300 per acre. That's a separate taxing authority. That's outside of those guys.
So where's that money?
Let me ask, that's another good question. Where does that money go? But I already asked that.
It's like the,
That's a question for the road and water
Correct.
you're right,
folks.
and
I asked that.
the impact fees also
We don't do
somebody
impact
else,
fees.
so.
But
Right.
that
We
was not
won't
my
put you
question.
on the horn for anything you didn't have responsibility.
Remember, I'm not a collector.
That
Yes,
was
sir.
actually not, hang on, that was actually not my question. My question
Let me
was,
get his question, I'll come back to it.
Okay.
please.
What was the appraised value of Flagler Estates last year?
So Flagler Estates has 4,888 parcels. It has a just market value of $430,516,134. To put that into perspective, the just market value of the county is $87 billion. So as Jesse says, as your money's being carved off to the TIF, other money in the county is, he used the word, taxes are almost, what's really a dirty word? I'm gonna get in trouble. You turn that camera off. Taxes are social. They are redistributed based on need, right? That guy on 5 meter beach that's paying on a $25 million house He's not getting benefit for his, God only knows how much taxes. So the assessed value in Flagler Estates is $317,109,745. Remember, the assessed value is the just market less any of the caps. The taxable value here is $238,723,745. Compared to taxable value in the county of $58 billion. And in Flagler,
we're still borrowing money.
pretty amazing. You know, governments, I've been getting altitude way above my pay grade. Governments, any government, yes, generally, does not, state governments are different because they're funded by sales taxes. They have a different purpose. Local governments never raise enough money in the current year to meet the needs. They don't. Schools don't. They
Needs
don't.
or wants?
Needs.
Once.
I'll use the schools, needs. We gotta put kids in seats. What they
If we
do
do,
is they
they'll
borrow long-term.
Yeah.
To meet a long-term asset. That's not unusual. That government financing, that means is normal.
Which is how we got here.
Right. Yeah, and I can't speak of the actual TF and CRA here. I'm talking about governments in
I
general.
know.
I'm not going into that. And the last thing, of the 4,888 properties here, 1,366 are homesteaded. Yes, ma'am.
So to get back to the 3%, right, and increases that we can, which is our max, right, per year.
On assessed.
When the CRA disappears, there's no longer a 3% limit, correct?
And what does,
When the CRA disappears.
No.
has nothing to do with the CRA.
I thought it did.
No, that's
None
a
whatsoever.
Florida
homestead exemption.
statute. That's
The CRA, any CRAs, and we have a number in the county outside of Flagler, I know they're called different things. That's independent of the application,
Oh, okay.
of the caps and the.
Save our homes with that. That's how it is.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Just gonna jot this down.
In your-
because I forget.
If there was something that we added here that didn't cause too much of a inflation, or should we be looking at it as what would bring back more to us? I don't know. What is an infrastructure need that would not end up down the road taxing somebody out of their home?
I think that's a multi-pronged question.
Yeah.
First of all, what is an infrastructure need? People that live here know that far better than I do, right? But what's happening, and this is just a fact of life. We live in Florida. I had two gentlemen in my office this morning that work for a company that we do business with. They do our street level photography. They came in yesterday from Madison, Wisconsin. When they left Madison, it was 13 below zero. When they got here, it was 86 degrees. The first thought in their mind is what?
Moving to Florida.
Why was it hot?
I want to move to Florida, right? So housing and values is an issue of supply and demand. The best we can figure now is about 1,000 people a month are moving to St. Johns County. Those 1,000 people a month have to have somewhere to live. They're going to buy a house. Now, when you look at the construction industry, even in our county, they've underserved the market by about 50%. Meaning if you look at household formation, which generally tells you how many homes you need, the construction industry's only built about 50% of that amount of homes. So your values are going to go up because people want to move here. And when they want to move here, they got to have a place to live. You know, if
The fire
everybody,
department's gonna raise and increase the value, more paved roads is gonna increase the value.
well, yes, but again, there are folks that want to move here that don't want to live in Valencia or Nayarit. They like to be where there's some trees and that sort of thing. So they're coming. When I took office, I was telling Kevin this afternoon in 2017. I had people calling saying, I've got a lot in Flagler Estates. I've been paying taxes on it forever. It's only worth $6,000. I want to give it away. That same lot today, they probably sell for between $35,000 and $50,000. Not a lot has changed, except there is a demand for the. Just real quick.
If the median sale price in St. Johns County is $560,000 to $570,000, I don't think there's a whole lot that really matters what you do out here. Those prices are going to be inflated because you're going to say, okay, if I live in St. Johns County where I'm closer to a Walmart, I'm going to pay $570,000, $580,000 for the house. Or I can go out here at Flagler Estates, not too bad. I can spend $350,000 on a house.
And get an acre and a half.
That's not going to change. So they can infrastructure all they want. If the median sale price in St. Johns County is $650,000, you just inflated Flagler Estates because it's more affordable to say, well, I can go over here for $400,000. And you didn't do anything. You still have asphalt milling roads. You still got ditches to overflow. Yeah. Hey, I'm with you. I live on the short side of ISIL. So my asphalt millings, I wish wasn't there because it's horrible.
Which is a good, I think to answer your question, if you paved all the roads in Flagler Estates tomorrow,
It wouldn't matter.
the values wouldn't jump
Because my
Well,
sales,
what
Over
matters to
time,
me
they're going to keep.
is keeping people in their homes that were here to begin with. That came in with, that have, the fixed income. Make sure that they're getting their homestead, make sure that they're, that senior thing that you briefly mentioned. How does that work, real quick?
Florida has senior exemptions.
How old do you have to be a senior?
You have to be 65,
Okay.
okay, which a lot of us qualify for, including me. However, it has a minimum value requirement on part of it, an income requirement on part of it, and they're far too low. I've lobbied our legislators this year to increase that. There's such dysfunction in Tallahassee right now, it will give any traction, but we'll go back next year. To qualify for it, you have to have an adjusted gross income of less than.
$37,694.
Of less than,
State changes it every year. But in today's Florida,
household.
so in today's Florida, how much sense does that make? Right? So that's to get an additional $50,000. If you've been in your house for 25 years, you can become totally exempt if you meet those requirements except. The just market value of your house has to be below $250,000.
You can't do that. St. Johns County.
yeah.
Can't do that out here.
Well, thank you for going to bat for that, thank you,
But they're
and I
too
hope you are
busy.
successful, wildly
They're too
successful.
busy in Tallahassee, gonna cut sales taxes, give us all $1,000, eliminate property taxes, and
I'm all for that.
Okay, now if
By
they
the way,
eliminate
all
the
for
property
that.
tax.
You're all
is
for
it-
eliminating property taxes?
100%.
Buckle up.
I know it's a wild ride, but thinking of, I buy my property and now I'm paying the government to rent it again every
So
month.
what you're gonna be
is
doing,
a
when they
bizarre
eliminate your property taxes, you're gonna pay government every time you buy anything.
No, I'm all for that.
About 14%.
That, I am
Well,
all
what
for
I
that.
was wondering is, if
But
they,
any Save Our Homes Deferred or any exemption you have today, you're gonna lose, and you're gonna pay twice the sales tax.
with the state one,
That's
I
okay.
thought you said that was like, if the state property tax was eliminated, is that all
There
they're
is no
talking
state
about?
property tax.
So I don't know what that 13% was, I misunderstood that.
So the state, and I'm gonna take up everybody's time here, if property taxes were eliminated, property taxes are local, they fund local operations. You control, all your property taxes stay in your county, and you could, every dollar of your property
Oh, I
tax
wish I
stays in
controlled
your county. You do control it, because every 2 years, every 4 years, you go to the ballot box. You vote for a county commissioner, and you vote for a school board member, we do control it.
Yeah, and then we get disappointed again.
Then go vote for somebody else. So if they eliminate that, that leaves a $60 billion hole that has to be replaced. Because we still want the ambulance, and we still want the sheriff's department, and we still want our kids in schools. So, me neither, mine are wrong. That $60 billion hole would have to be replaced with an income tax or a sales tax.
Let's do it.
But sales tax is based upon consumption. If I don't
Exactly.
consume, I don't pay.
Exactly.
You consume.
A lot
I
less than
consume a
you
lot
may
less than I used to. Believe
Add
me.
it up. If everybody in this room went back last year, if you keep all your receipts for a year, and you add up what you pay in sales tax,
And double it.
it's probably pretty close to what your property tax is.
I'm okay with that. Totally okay with that. Still cheap.
So anyway, but that's what I was talking about, it has to be replaced.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And thank our people.
They
Y'all
have our
got
tax
questions, call me.
collector.
I'm there all the time.
Our tax collector is up
Huh?
for-
I'm the one that's living around here, so I'm right around here. That's me.
David, how are you?
Doesn't look like a haircut.
Welcome.
Nah,
Yearly,
regular plane,
No, it looks like a haircut.
zoom around every once in a while.
We're
we're just, you know,
You're just asking questions.
we're looking for answers.
That, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
It's a very mythic topic.
Yes, yes. So I'm Jennifer Raven. I began my career as a customer service representative in 1994 with the tax collector's office. I was named the assistant tax collector in 2008 and was fortunate enough to be sworn in as the tax collector this past January. So I was born and raised right here in St. Johns County. I remember back in the 90s, I think I had it. I could have bought a lot out here for like $1,500, and I just wish I would have.
Right?
So speaking of being here for so long, you know, I remember that. But as a resident my entire life, I'm very excited to continue and serve the citizens of St. Johns County. So the office of the tax collector is a state constitutional office, and it was established by the Constitution in 1885. The idea was that local taxes would be best collected by an elected official. They'd have some,
To cut down on corruption.
yeah, exactly.
We all do that.
They want to be responsive to the needs of the community. So our budget is also approved by the Florida Department of Revenue, and we're a fee office, which means we are completely self-sufficient. We operate on fees and commissions we collect from the services we provide. The main function of the tax collector's office, though, is to collect, invest, and distribute. To achieve those functions, there's so much more that this does than just collect taxes, though. We deliver state services at the local level. We serve 5 executive branches of state government. The one we've talked about the most is through the Department of Revenue. We collect real estate, property taxes, and tangible taxes. So our 2024 tax roll was over $875 million. Our collection rate is currently at over 97%. We represent the Department of Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, issuing driver's license, identification cards, disabled placards, vessels and vehicle titles and registrations. Speaking of your driver's license, Florida has been issuing Real ID compliant credentials since 2010. By federal mandate, you have to basically prove who you are through a birth certificate, social security card, and your address. The deadline is coming up on May 7th, so at some point, check your driver's license. Make sure you have a little gold star in your corner. Otherwise, you will not be able to enter federal buildings or fly on an airplane.
Or get back into the country if you go to shoot.
If you leave, that's right. We're also an agent of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. We issue hunting and fishing licenses, management area permits, alligator hunting licenses. We are the only way you can purchase a lifetime hunting and fishing license. On behalf of the Florida Department of Agriculture, we issue concealed weapons licenses. And we issue birth certificates in partnership with the Florida Department of Health. On the local level, through local ordinances created by your Board of County Commissioners, we collect tourist development taxes, which is also known as your bed tax, and we issue business tax receipts, formerly known as occupational licenses. So the funds collected from all these services are invested, and then we distribute them per Florida statutes.
What's your ROI?
What's that?
What's your ROI? Return on investment?
Well, we're at a 97% collection rate right
That's
now.
collection.
So-
You say you invest the money. My question is, what
Oh, so it
interest rate
depends
are
on
you
the
making?
market, of course. We go out to certified banks that are approved by the state, and we get the best interest rate that we can, and we have a very good return on investment. In fact, we return money to the county every year, and each year, last year I think was $8 million that we returned. So, very good ROI. We look for the best investment rates that we can find.
Good, give me some.
Become a taxing authority.
Correct.
Yeah, we do.
So there's 20 ad valorem taxing authorities, like we were talking about, ad valorem taxing authorities. So an ad valorem taxing authority, the tax is a formula based on the millage rate set by the taxing authority and on the value of the property. Those are, like Mr. Creamer described, the county, the school district, the city of St. Augustine. There's 53 non-ad valorem taxing authorities. Those are the ones that are your fees, your flat fees. So they're not based on the value of the property. It's a fee charged for specific services like Jesse's Roads.
Those include solid waste disposal and your CDD fees. Flagler Estates Road and Water District is another one, yes. So those are the state services for the 5 executive branches that we serve. But in addition to those services, we want to collect as much money as possible to invest as much money as possible to turn back as much money as possible. So we offer additional services that provide a need to the community. So for example, we offer as a convenience, we sell beach passes during certain times of the year. We were the first in the state, and we actually helped the state develop the program for fleet license plates. So when you see the green license plate on an AT&T vehicle or a UPS truck, those are fleet license plates that St. Johns County is one of the only counties in the state that issues those license plates to collect that additional revenue. We also have a program called Project Buckle Up. So that's to serve a need to the community. So again, we're the only tax collector's office in the state to offer this service. We have certified car seat technicians on staff who inspect and teach a parent or caregiver how to properly install the car seat. We also partner with the sheriff's office with their reentry center. The only tax collector's office in the state to have such a partnership. And that is when an individual is eligible to be released, the sheriff's office identifies this person and will assist them in getting an ID card or a driver's license if they're eligible. And then that way, when they get out, they have identification. Because think about, what can you do without identification? Not much.
Being illegal.
Depends on where you're at.
So it helps them get a job and fight recidivism to go back to jail. We're also the only tax collector's office in the state that provides we are a third-party driving school, and we provide driver education in a partnership with the St. Johns County School District. So all St. Johns County high schools have our driver education program in it. We have a phase 1, which is your learner's license, and we have a phase 2, which is actually the driving, where you get behind the wheel of the car, you drive the car, and we have a track, and you go on the roads, neighborhoods, we take them downtown. You know how
Nobody
it is.
should have to go down.
You know how it is to drive downtown. I agree. And then if they're ready, we'll take them on the interstate.
That's where you
We
take.
will,
That's a
but
final
if
question.
they're ready. We don't want to put anybody at risk, so. We have 4 office locations at this time. Last year, we processed over 768,000 transactions, collected more than $833 million.
And created 516 different license plates.
No kidding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we have a
Quick
lot
They
of
get money for
question,
that.
what are beach passes used for?
to drive on the beach.
Yeah.
Oh, to drive on them.
Yeah, access. You can buy it daily or you can buy a season.
I
Yes.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So based on our conversation tonight, yes,
I
ma'am.
do have a question.
Okay,
So as a resident, I get my tax bill
yes,
and I see it broken out, the regular taxes for the county and then the non-ad valorem taxes for our special district, road and water,
right.
okay? So can you explain, because when we write the check to you,
Right,
all the money for the county and our special district goes to you.
that's
Now,
right.
can you explain to me, once you receive that money,
Mhm.
does it come back to road and water? How does it
Yes.
happen? Let me know the process of
Okay.
what happens.
Sure. So we collect the money, we deposit it, we invest it. So we have to distribute that money per statute. So at certain times of the year, we have to turn over that money very quickly. So it's always short-term investments. So we invest that money, and then per statute, when we have to make that distribution, we go through and see what money was collected for each taxing authority. And then whatever percentage of money was collected for that taxing authority goes to the taxing authority. And then we can continue collecting, continue investing, and then how much was collected. So if 50% was collected, then we distribute that, and then the next time if it was only 20%, they'd only get, what was collected on
Do their they get
behalf.
100% of what's collected
In the-
back?
In the end, yes.
In the end, they do get 100% of the flat tax collected.
Yeah, she said her overhead comes from what they're doing.
Mhm.
So there's
Yes,
no
sir.
overhead coming out of it.
Okay. The payment that the district gets from the county is what our budget is fixed on. Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you determine that, so, yes.
The
The
millage
the
rate.
taxing authority determines the millage rate and then determines how they're gonna spend that money. So that is how you would do your budget.
I believe y'all
Can
charge
we get
per
an a la
acre.
carte for the taxes? The ones you want.
What happens if the taxes are not paid?
So we have a delinquent tax sale, which is what we're in the process of preparing for now. So taxes became delinquent April 1st. We have a tax sale on or before June 1st of every year. Those taxes are then paid by certificate holders, which are basically investors. So those taxes are still paid, not necessarily by the property owner, but they're paid by that certificate holder, and then that money is then distributed to those taxing
So they're
authorities.
buying the tax rights to this county?
Tax certificate to that property.
For
They're
pe-
considered liens on the property.
There's a lien on
Mhm. There is a lien on
Now-
the property.
You said that you were naming off a bunch of social services that we do that no other county does. Who voted to help people coming out of jail or help buckle seat belts or, all this
So we
stuff?
already
How much does that cost us?
Nothing. We already issued driver's licenses and identification cards on behalf of Department of Highway
Okay.
Safety and Motor Vehicle. So then the sheriff's office would determine who might be eligible for that ID card, and they pay for it.
So it doesn't cost us anything, okay.
It's
that's
not
fine.
costing you anything.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, because if we're doing a fire sale.
That would be pretty popular, for sure. Yes, sir.
You know what the money that you earn from the interest check like 3 or 4 times a year.
The interest that we earn operates the office.
Your office.
That's how we operate.
That's how they pay for it.
Mhm, that's how we pay for, like
Salaries.
salaries, yeah. Yeah, so, right.
One topic we didn't discuss, and I know that everybody's pretty interested, how about the illegals in this county?
So I don't have any control over that, but
No, you don't.
that's what the Federal Real ID Act is for, right? So you have to come in and prove who you are.
Well,
And that
actually,
you're
you're
here
supposed to-
legally.
As an employer, you're supposed to be checking those IDs too.
Right, I mean, we do that of course, because we have to, and then also when someone comes in, they have to prove that they're here legally, or we will not issue a credential. They have to have proof of their legal residence.
That was my question.
Okay, yeah, they have to have proof of their legal residence.
IDs that are being generated, if you happen to be in New York, we know that there are tons, California, there are tons of illegals that are getting valid driver's licenses and at the same time getting motor voter.
Yeah, you have to prove that you're legally here.
I had to.
Well,
This is
it's an
Florida.
important
This
point.
ain't.
It is,
New
yeah,
York.
Yeah,
It is,
New York
yes.
City.
yeah.
New York. And we're getting people from New York now, we're getting people from California here.
Oh.
And
They got IDs.
they got IDs already. So my
Yeah, but
question-
you still have to come in and prove to us. So if you come from another state, even if you're real ID compliant in that state, you have to bring in all your documents still.
That's what I wanted to
No, I
Yes.
didn't have to, actually. I didn't have to do that.
That's what I wanted
Do
to
you
Yeah,
have
you don't have your real
a
ID.
gold star?
I have, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Then you
I
have
do.
to bring your documents in.
No, so I moved to Florida 8 years ago from Tennessee. And to switch my driver's license over, I don't believe I maybe had to show my green card,
You
maybe.
did. You
Maybe,
did.
I cannot say for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I know I didn't have to bring a whole bunch of paperwork.
And if you move,
Mail
you have
order
to show
bride.
us that.
I got one of those.
It's so stupid.
They're the best.
I got one of those.
I was one that didn't speak English, but there's anyone that
These
does.
kind of very simple.
Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to find a dry erase marker for the dry erase board with the TV in front of it, if you could.
Let me go check.
Use your shirt.
Unless there's one.
Use your
here.
jacket. Don't use the flag. We done?
No, we're going to.
And I will.
If we need, well, if you want. I can change it.
Birds, just give me something that comes to mind that we need here.
Yeah, the school bus stop.
Paved road. Okay, and then the next question would be Leo. Drainage. Drainage. Okay, so then Leo was, that was, paved roads. And then I think next to Leo is drainage, David.
School bus lighting.
School bus lighting. And then next to David is Nancy.
I second it.
Second
two
is-
next to that.
Okay.
The school bus line.
Okay, and then we're gonna come over here. Let me go. Drainage. Or you're next. You got anything?
The light.
The school bus lighting?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the gym. Like rec center gym? Gymnasium?
Well, like Planet Fitness, a gym. You said
Just a gym.
You said anything.
Yes, it
Wasn't
can be anything. Okay, and so now, let's, right here.
Drainage.
Drainage, better drainage, anything specific to that?
Because we don't have the water flow.
Okay, so related to water flow. Okay. You're up.
No, I'm not.
No, you're gonna pass. Al, let's hear from you.
Actually, I was, the street lights are ready, so everything. is different.
So we're gonna do another
So
one
another-
here. I'll go ahead and touch it. Okay, Eddie,
Big roof.
paved roads. So we're gonna have this. And then Debbie. Hey, Deborah. What was it? What did she say?
That's all right.
We're gonna be Walmart.
No, I'm just kidding.
I would like Nicholas paved all the way through. And I don't even live on that road.
I would like Huskins paved only because
No.
it's a great return on investment.
No, I wanted Haskins to have extra potholes on it.
No, wait, hang on.
It's including Nicholas.
Hold up. My actual thing is, I would like a parking lot, a bigger parking lot for these events.
Parking lot here.
Yes,
Community center parking lot.
yes, an actual.
More potholes.
Okay.
We need some more speed bumps on Flagler Estates Boulevard.
It's per diesel on
And
it.
we need to figure out about those ducks. I mean, seriously.
Don't be a touch hater. There she goes.
Like, I love ducks, but if you live on
Ducks.
Flagler Estates Boulevard and it, I don't know if you get ran over.
In my driveway.
Yes.
You were parking lot.
Huh?
Can you ask for parking lot?
Yeah.
Yes, parking lot.
That's, I think, what she's
What?
talking about.
Right.
Well, so here's the deal. So collectively as a group, and I got it on video hopefully. Collectively as a group, we all see these out as top of mind.
Right on.
What I'd like you to do before you leave, please, is fill one of these out. Fill. And what I want you to do is get more personal. And you're, oh, how did you get one?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But if you could please,
That's really my number one thing.
must have grabbed them before I got it. So, okay, as much as we collectively as a group came up with the answers on the board, and we can see where more people agreed and, on that. But these are for you individually. So if you wanted more privacy in your answer, or you want to prioritize, if you could fill out the survey for this workshop, and that way, give us some feedback to know what you liked about tonight and what you're looking for. And then if you could give it to me, there should be sometimes. Anybody need a pen? I'll bring it. Oh, you don't have time tonight? Hey, let me stop. No, I don't have your first stuff. We're gonna. Try to get for it.
No,
Just
no
for
what
the
to do.
forms.
No.
I've got to go. I'm leaving right now. My sister's at my house.
All right, if you want to, okay, so then we're not gonna collect them here. I'll be here. You wanna give them to me?
Yeah, we can collect them, but no,
And then we'll bring
meeting.
it to the next session. Before our next community meeting.
Yeah, sorry, my sister, family's more important tonight, so
No,
I apologize.
if you could fill it out, turn it in, I tried to find questions. Or you're gonna,
All right, so
okay, so let's see, how are we collecting these? By email attachment or?
What? I'm sorry.
Okay, for those of you that have to leave and cannot stay, Let me write you down. Flagler Estates CRA@gmail.com.
Flagler Estates CRA at gmail.com.
I've been out for the last 2 days. My sister's in town. I'll check emails and get back with you. Okay, all right, perfect. All right, sorry, I gotta go see my family.
Have a good time.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye, Bill.
I love this stuff. I thought this was fantastic.
So you got your mail order, Brian, too?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, sure thing.
Got it from Myanmar.
Yeah. Yeah, not from him or someplace like that.
He's gonna be
I think it's on Vienna or something.
Yeah, I'm Vienna, you said. No, actually, I go back 10 years.